Hello, my name is Rob Perhamus. This is my email, and this is my telephone number, and this is about international trade. Wikipedia was turned off for the day. Don't be afraid. Share what you know. It's okay to be special and different and have a purpose. We took a picture during the class. You introduced yourselves. This book, the book that we'll use is by Weiss. It's Building an Import-Export Business. This is your brain, and I'm going to introduce new information to it. And the information is going to be about international trade. We talked about global business management across the top, global marketing, trade finance, and supply chain management, which are the topics that we'll be talking about. For global business management, we'll talk about these topics. For global marketing, we'll talk about these topics. In trade finance, we'll talk about these topics. And for supply chain management, we'll talk about these topics. How do we learn about these topics? The textbook we'll be using is Building an Import-Export Business, 4th edition, by Kenneth D. Weiss. And here is the ISBN number to order the book. I'll be using a Google site for this course, and I'll send you a link which will provide you with additional information. We're also going to use UCR Extension's Moodle for quizzes and a few other things. We'll be using the Global Edge website from the Michigan State University, which is a portal with a tremendous amount of information. We're also going to be using some information from the California Center for International Trade and Development. In addition, we'll look at this topic and breaking news around the world regarding international trade. And there'll be some additional sources. I know this slide is difficult to see, but there'll be links elsewhere. These are the requirements and how I will evaluate. I'll use a standard grading system. These are some general rules. We talked about some things you should know. I mentioned that you should not race ahead because the information will change based on my evaluation of how much you're learning. How we do team projects will require that everybody participates so that we can put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Next, I gave some information about your instructor, Rob. These are my great kids. These are some places that I've been for more than a few months. I have a Bachelor of Science from Alfred University in Ceramic Engineering. I have an MBA from Claremont Graduate University. These are some of the companies that I have worked for. I had a business which was a 12-team women's volleyball club, and I've assisted with the startup of a community garden. I also teach new product development and global logistics and supply chain because they're fun. I like hot food trucks. This one happens to be a brand new one that's going to be coming to the UCR campus soon. There are 2 counties in California that have not allowed these hot food trucks for more than 30 years, so I am attempting to change the law, and I'm getting pretty close. I get fascinated with technology and the use of it, the application of it, and especially with education. I look forward to traveling and working around the world. I covered several topics just about learning. I think learning can be improved through discussions. Different people have different learning style preferences. We talked about some different thinking process models. We talked about differences in motivation between traditional students and non-traditional students. We talked about an instructor being the expert, or the instructor being the facilitator, where all of the participants are in some way experts. We touched on Bloom's taxonomy and the hierarchy of knowledge. We talked about Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow and being engaged. And of course, every instructor would like his students to become engaged in the topic. I also talked about direct, relational, and instrumental leadership skills. We talked about where the students are from. We discussed the use of Moodle in this class. I'll be using some YouTube videos and videos from other sources to help explain concepts. We'll talk about various organizations that have an impact on international trade. We'll talk about different stages of economic integration around the world. We'll look at monetary unions, customs unions, trade blocks, additional internet resources. Went through an outline of the things we'll be discussing, including these topics, and these, and these. I quickly went through the table of contents for the book that we'll be using, which included this, a quick view of Chapter 2, setting up a business, and we'll go through that around here locally depending upon interest. Our text is going to talk about how it's much better to begin with a customer than to begin with a product. We'll talk about how to choose products and suppliers, how to market in the United States and abroad. We'll talk about finance and credit and international trade. We'll look at packaging, shipping, and insurance. We'll look at the typical documents that are required for international trade. We'll look at the regulation of foreign trade. We'll talk about NAFTA and trade agreements, different types of arrangements. There's some pretty good examples at the end of the book, including some sample agreements and some other resources. And that's pretty much it for class number 1.